Welcome back, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, to the first panel discussion, which is about a question: what is the true impact of research and innovation projects in Danube region, entrepreneurial and policy-making perspectives? And I would like to present the panelists. So, from my left, Mrs. Jasna Atanasievich from the Secretariat for Public Policies of Republic of Serbia. Then Mrs. Sanja Vraneš from General Director from Institute Mihailo Pupin. On my right is Mr. Dino Delic from Fishing Broker, CEO Booker, sorry. And also Mrs. Zoya Damjanova from Project Manager in the Applied Research and Communication Fund from Bulgaria. So this question, which is also in the agenda, we will try to discuss about it with our colleagues here. And actually, my first question to the panelists would be: how can policymakers and entrepreneurs work better together to maximize the impact of research and innovation project in Danube region? So maybe if you can, who would start? Maybe can I give it?
Thank you for the opportunity to start. I think it will be useful to present a broad overview of the instruments that are in hands of policymakers and that are fortunately being either used, either in development by policymakers in Serbia. As you know, as probably one of keynote speakers, State Secretary in the Ministry of Science has presented, there is ongoing reform of the financing of R&D, because it's obvious that the local R&D can be much more leveraged when we are talking about public financing projects that are financed from budget. Up to now, they were formally competitive, but in reality, they were not so competitive. So there is currently ongoing reform, which is going gradually to transform this public financing of research and development into more competitive tools. This model, which is currently being circulated and on which consultations have been made, includes some incentives for more cooperation with private sector. So there should be some incentive if researchers find their financing on the market. There are currently, apart from that, there are currently very successful ongoing schemes through Innovation Fund. And I don't know whether our panelist was a beneficiary from their grants, but they offer very effective means of support in very early phase of development of innovative idea, which can be issued from research, but also from business idea. And there is another instrument run by the Innovation Fund, which is technology transfer grants, and as far as we know, it's financed from EU funds, and it is also successful. There is interest from both sides. There is potential, that is sure. Of course, there can always be more funds. It can always be a conclusion. And there is some other aspect that I would like to introduce here, and it can be leveraged much more, and that is something that is even the ongoing debate in EU countries. It is public financing of innovation through public procurement. As you know, public procurements are very conservative by nature, and they are not their main, all legislation related to public procurements has the logic behind to protect public funds from any risk. On the other side, innovation bears some risk. And there is one EU directive which introduces a new legal institute which is called Partnership for Innovation, and provides a room that, for financing in phases of some potential products of research and innovation through that mechanism. It is a good moment that Ministry of Finance is preparing a new regulation on public procurement in Serbia. Now I'm not referring to the whole region, but I believe that this is valid for many other countries. As developed EU countries are struggling now to introduce and put in practice this instrument. So there is a room there. Let's stop here. And of course, I would mention the broader framework. These are the list of instruments that I have enlisted. And the broader framework is smart specialization strategy approach, and that is something that is on the agenda of the policymakers and, let's say, innovation community and R&D community in practitioners, and that is on the agenda for this year. Now we are somewhere in the middle of the process. I believe that one of your keynote speakers has also presented this work. So that should be the framework, and there should be, in respect to the Danube region, there is definitely a room also for cooperation, given the logic of that framework, which is specialization. So there should be a complementarity and okay, and some other. I will add something more in the next
round. Good. Mrs. Vranes, please. Your opinion?
Okay, I'm not a policymaker. I come from a research institute that was established some 70 years ago by the state of Serbia, at that time state of Yugoslavia, and it's completely state-owned, but it earns 100% of its turnover via technology transfer to industry and public sector. So we can serve as a best practice example when it comes to bridging academia and industry and actually outreaching the industry and public sector. How do we do it, and what kind of policy hinders our success? What kind of policies actually facilitates our success? I can tell you something from the perspective of the successful research institute. First of all, our institute is in information and communication technology, so that's the only perspective I can provide. I can't talk about automotive industry, etc. So we do have national research projects, 22 of them actually, but all of them sum up to less than 5% of our annual turnover. We are also among the most successful Serbian institutions when it comes to European funding. When Serbia became eligible for EU funding, that was in 2004, sixth framework program. From that point onward, we managed to acquire 75 European projects. But as you know, in applied research, like information and communication technology, the outcome of research shouldn't be just a paper in respect to publication. The outcome should be not proof of concept prototype that one PhD student can actually produce. The outcome should be an industrial strength prototype with technology readiness level 8 and 9, not 3 and 4 and 5. So only this type of outcome of research is ready for market, and it actually it's a good basis for technology transfer, and it actually makes money. So the policy makers, especially those in Ministry of Education, Science and Technological Development, I can't see anybody from representing this ministry, unfortunately, they should know that instead of imposing so many high-level publications on us from technology area, instead they should ask for outcomes of high technology readiness level. That's the only way we can actually sell our products, and we can earn, as we do at our institute, more than 90% of our annual turnover via technology transfer of our innovative products, services, and technologies to Serbian market and abroad, of course, and to public sector as well. So when the general manager of Fraunhofer Institute from Germany, which is the most successful ICT institute in the whole Europe, that has 12,000 researchers, when he visited us and found out that unlike them, who actually have structural financing 30% via institutional funding, we have zero institutional funding, 30% via public funding, European or national BMBF, and only 30% via marketable products, commercial products. And he was so astonished by our result, 90% from the market, so he decided to make Fraunhofer Pupin Joint Project Office at our institute. At this office, we actually do a lot of European projects and also commercial projects. So what we would like to see from Ministry of Science, to ask us, Applied Research Institute, to produce high technology readiness level product instead of publication. Publications we produce as well, but that's not our main mission. Our main mission is actually to provide Serbian market and regional market and European and world market with innovative products and technologies that work. Some people at Ministry of Science think that what works is not science. Science is just formulas. No, in applied research, what matters is the robust industrial prototype. And you probably don't know, our institute actually controls and automates all power production in Serbia, thermal power plant, hydropower plant, photovoltaic power plant, wind farms. It automates and controls transmission of power, distribution of power. You've seen in the news, the new National Distribution Center in Novi Sad, completely done by us. So in energy sector, our market share is 90%. But all the projects we actually win competing with Siemens, IBB, Areva, Westinghouse, General Electric in public bidding procedures. No preference because we are state-owned institute. We actually have to beat those big names. And those big names, Siemens alone, has bigger research budget than the whole Ministry of Science of Serbia. And then our institute has tiny research budget and we beat them. And that's important to actually stimulate that kind of innovation to be undertaken here so that we can actually employ, new electronic engineers, new ICT professionals to keep them in Serbia, not to let them go abroad and find, better salaries abroad. And then we have domestic product which is cheaper than Siemens or General Electric's, and also it's easier to maintain because when we control 4 blocks in Tent, 2 are controlled by Siemens, and something goes wrong, we are in Obrenovac in half an hour. And something goes wrong in Siemens' block, they need, 2 weeks for the engineers from Siemens to come to Belgrade and to repair. Just one more comment. Another message to policymakers. When we bid for big projects abroad, we have a huge obstacle. Our building is owned by the state of Serbia. We are completely owned by the state of Serbia. Although among 8 buildings that we have, 1 is built by Serbia. The other 7 are built from our profit. And then they are still owned by state of Serbia. And when we bid for big projects, we need bank guarantees. To obtain huge bank guarantees, we need an asset. We need collaterals. We don't have them because all our buildings are actually you know, belong to state of Serbia. So some kind of incentives, so or expert promotion funds, or development bank, or something like that is needed here to actually support our R&D sector, especially in these missions abroad. Sorry for being this, you know, exhaustive, but I had to say about these two obstacles that we have.
Thank you very much. Actually, it's really interesting what you suggested, especially also with these technology readiness levels. This is very important issue in the programming of the founding programs. Actually, I'm sure a lot of our audience knows Horizon 2020, and especially there are different type of projects. We have like coordination and support actions, then we have innovation actions, and research and innovation actions. And actually, if you look the new work program in Horizon 2020, there are usually technology readiness levels, so project begins already with 6, 7, 8, as you mentioned. And this is also this cooperation, I think, with this stakeholder engagement before when the program is written, what business and policymakers do then together to prepare such a program.
I may add something just here. The thing is that before Horizon 2020, they had FP7 framework program, and they had the competitiveness and innovation. Competitiveness and innovation program was meant for those near the market, while FP7 was meant to higher level up in the air research. At the end of FP7, they found out that those results of FP7 actually weren't used for market success of European companies or research institutes. Therefore, they actually joined CPAPE with FP7 and formed Horizon 2020 in order to make better outreach of Horizon 2020 results towards industry and public sector.
Thank you very much. Maybe Mr. Delic, from your perspective, you have also a lot of...
Sure, does this work? Yeah? Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Well, first of all, I must say that I'm impressed with Professor Dr. Sanja Ranish and everything she just said. I come from a startup world where things are similar and different at the same time. And we are totally bootstrapped, so which means that we financed ourselves from our profits and revenue. And I cannot say unfortunately, but at the same time, it is that we did not use any financial support from the government or other venture capital companies. First of all, for R&D, it depends whether you want to use it in a commercial purposes or not. And for commercial purposes, people who are building such products should be focused on making profit and making it sellable. So that comes from people who are making it. When it comes to policymakers, their decisions should be, from my perspective, more focused on commercial products. Because if you cannot sell it, your research and development is somewhere in the air. And that does not provide value, short-term value, as the commercial product. How it should be delivered, well, first of all, it's quite hard to get any of these, any support financial, because you need to go through many cycles of interviews, applications, etc., which becomes less interesting to people like me who are focused on business. It should be more promoted because a lot of them are not visible to regular people like me. And definitely it should be more focused on domestic products, meaning local companies than companies that come abroad, as I had a chance to travel around the world and meet different people from different companies, different industries. And it's very tough because people from like domestic companies have so much advantage over you that you cannot compete with them. And here it's totally different. You need to fight with local mentality first, and then with so many other things to succeed, instead of having kind of a step ahead of the competition. I would not add anything more than what Sanya said, because it would be just saying the same thing all over again. But making it more accessible, making it more public, and just more towards local companies and local people, instead of supporting foreign companies instead. Thanks.
May I just react? Because we are here, I think we should separate two different policies or areas of policies, as we are here mainly talking about science and scientific policy or R&D policy. I wouldn't agree with you that government should focus on marketable part of innovation and scientific production, because we are here at the Faculty of Economics. Let's be clear about the public interest. Public interest is to have a scientific production and in the area of basic research, and on the other side of marketing or finding a market for products of innovation. It is not to support directly applied research if we are talking about pure public interest. So we shouldn't neglect state funding of the basic research, because all applied research can be treated as a byproduct of fundamental science. So if we are talking from the perspective of scientific policy. On the other hand, I believe that you think about support to SME, business environment, and the growth of domestic companies, which I agree completely, should be in focus. But some of your colleagues are not so, are reacting negatively on some specific subsidies to companies. So if it is not them, I would say. So it's a very ambiguous topic, because in a way you distort competition when you are subsidizing some firms. So each startup would like to be supported by the state, but then when the state is supporting the next startup, the community of the existing will be angry about that. And that was the experience from some discussions with startups. So they're not so happy with distortion of the competition when state is directly subsidizing some new companies. I think that there is much more work to be done in the area of business environment, of all the procedures, or as you mentioned, your fighting with mentality, all those obstacles that you face in developing business in Serbia, that should be priority in the next period, rather than direct subsidizing. And I agree for the comment about foreign companies. There should be at least after FDI promotion, some program to develop local suppliers for incoming FDIs, and I think that there is an initiative to develop such a program in the Development Agency of Serbia. I'm not, just to be clear, I'm not policymaker. I'm from the, let's say, professional body in government that works on the reform of policymaking to be more based on evidence and consultations. Thank you.
Thank you for your okay, yes, please add, and then we go to...
Well, I agree with things you just mentioned, because it's very important to support research in early phase. But that's what I'm saying at the same time is with the companies, that a lot of them are doing something that does not exist. perfect example is our cryptocurrencies. They needed to be researched and to be developed, and none of them actually was founded in Serbia, which is very interesting to say, and they do not have any kind of support. So it doesn't have to be necessarily something that is in the air, but something that can be applied at some point. In order to invent something, you need a lot of funding, and something that you cannot kind of feel. But if that has market potential, it should be definitely something to consider. And how to get there, just like Sanja said, you need to communicate with people who are doing it. A lot of problems in the companies are coming when you're creating a product for market without talking to your future customers. And it's the same here. We are your customers, and people are not talking to us. So that's something to be, to just keep in mind and think about. Thanks.
Okay, would you, or, yeah.
Just a short comment to provide reconciliation from these two conflicting points. Actually, the truth is in between. What we do, again, from my practical point of view, what we do, we actually combine two important factors, which is science push and market pull. We know we are at the cutting edge of ICT. We do have a lot of publications, a lot of PhDs, you know. But it's not just that we do what's hot research topic. We combine demand pull factors. We actually listen to the market. We do technology foresight to find out what market needs. And then we combine two aspects, science push, market pull, and do research, which is cutting-edge research, a lot of publication, but that part of research that can be marketable in the future. So both aspects are important.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mrs. Damianova, please.
Thank you. Heated discussion, I would say. The question was about how policymakers could work together in a better way, right? Listening to the colleagues before me, and since most of you are involved in research and innovation studies, I'm confident about this. We often tend to forget that there is a fourth major player in this whole game, and this is the society out there. This is not just about government, it's not about only businesses, and it's not about only education and research. This is society. Horizon 2020 is a program which is focused on societal challenges. They are listed. A lot of goals: climate change, health, agriculture, bioeconomy. And recently in literature we listen and we read a lot, we read a lot about the quadruple helix. And this is where the fourth major actor in that whole game comes in. The society, the citizens, the average people. In the beginning and in the end, we are all average people out there with families, problems, children, old parents to take care of. And in order to have a better policy making and policy implementation, we need to learn how to listen to the voice of the people. And the whole program of Horizon 2020, which is called SWOFS, Science Within and For Society, is all about responsible research and innovation. It's all about public engagement, and under public engagement we understand stakeholder engagement and also engagement of the average people. I'll just share experience with you which we had recently last year when we finalized one big project funded under FP7, one of the last calls, and it was focused on sustainable innovation. Not really new type of innovation, but I'm not going to dive into this topic. But there we worked in this project, we worked with citizen panels in 14 countries in Europe. And the citizen panels were tasked with developing first visions, and then based on these visions, there were experts coming in, working with the visions, identifying new priority areas for research and going back to the citizens to, in a way, to verify and to endorse these priorities. And this approach was very much favored by DG RTD. We made a research paper because what we identified based on an additional analysis of these visions of the citizens were these still difficult to address in both national and EU level research and innovation policies, the cross-sectoral issues. Agriculture, health, energy and environment, for instance. We are still working in silos. Calls on energy, calls on climate change, calls on health. Still very few in Horizon 2020, still very few calls address cross-sectoral approaches and cross-sectoral issues. So, this is one of the statements I wanted to make, that we need to find a way to work with society. Society is paying for our research, society is paying for funding some startups or business accelerators, etc. So we need to find a way to listen and to involve people in the policy making, in the design of policies. About the coordination between programs at the EU level, this is still a big issue. I'll give the example of Bulgaria. Still, we have, two separate policies, although the two ministries are talking together, but we have the Ministry of Education and Research in charge of the scientific policy and the Ministry of Economy in charge of the National Innovation Policy. Yes, they were talking together when they were working on the S3, the strategy for smart specialization, but still we have, these two separate institutions in charge of the two policies. So the same comes to the EU level, because, for instance, what we see as results, and this was already addressed this morning in plenary, what we see for results coming out of research projects, for instance, funded in FP7 or Horizon 2020, how much of these results are really taken up by the policymakers, especially in science, in society, in social sciences, etc., etc. Not many. Not many. So what I'm talking about now is if we take the example of FP7 and Horizon 2020 and the whole family of Interreg projects, because Interreg Danube is just one of the programs. What I personally see is that results from Horizon 2020 can be taken up, they can serve as input, feed in, for instance, the structural funds program, especially when it comes to capacity building. The overall topic is about entrepreneurship of this panel, and entrepreneurial education is really, for instance, a problem in Bulgaria. But projects like this one, like ReSTI, they can pick up issues, findings, etc. from Horizon, new developments, and they can really further develop this into these kind of projects which are focused on capacity building, because Horizon 2020 does not finance capacity building. So this is where I see better policy making, better policy implementation and coordination between policies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe some intervention about, no? Good. I fully agree with you, Zoya, regarding this issue, and also, as you have mentioned, importance of these regional programs, Interreg programs. We have different, it's Interreg Danube transnational program, then we Alpine, we have also Mediterranean, and then also there is a Interreg Europe program also, because these are meant for capacity building. We don't have this anymore in Horizon 2020 in such extent as it was in FP7, and we need to use this also to maybe maximize some impacts and take up the results of the previous project. Yeah. So as we are currently in the Faculty of Economics, which is also higher educational institution. So What do you think is how we can better link business and education sectors that they would better address the same issues from these perspectives? Who would like to start?
I'll be a gentleman. Yeah. So, yeah. So would you like?
Okay, thank you. Since we are at the Faculty of Economics, I would just modify your question, because business can also, we can add, and public administration with the education, because from this perspective, from the perspective of public administration, we lack the expertise, we lack the educated professionals to be able to design policies, to design innovative instruments, and to articulate signals to the business community, research community, about priorities of interest to be developed in the research community. So that is, let's say, a business side or demand side of the labor market for this faculty, and for other faculty, yeah, for higher education. I think we should put some effort to build this capacity. As for managerial capacity, I think the huge challenge is to deal with interfaces of different cultures. Because in order to build a successful applied research project, you need to understand the need of, for example, business or public institution, and to have a patience to understand their motivation, their culture, their way of doing, their, for example, reluctance to share with you some data, and these kind of issues that sometimes takes time, takes energy, and needs some skills in the area of communication and management that can be, my impression is, can be strengthened in the higher education in our region. What else? Also, in the area of the same kind of skills, my impression also is that, as you already stated, there should be more of a consultative process. There should be more of the exchange of needs in their communication to decision makers, policy makers. And on the other side, there should be more ear for the real world, for economy, for science, from policy makers to lead this dialogue. I'm aware we are also lacking skills in the on the side of the, let's say, supply research and businesses. My impression is that as the institution where I work is intending to enforce that dialogue, to impose, if you want more of a consultation process, there is very often a difficulty to articulate problems, to articulate issues, to prepare legislative proposals. Where is the problem? To increase the probability that it is going to be solved, because there are so many priorities, so many reforms, and so many issues that policymakers are dealing with, especially in the environment of EU integration. There should be more of the understanding of both sides of each other, and for that we need skills. We need to produce these profiles in the education, who understands, who have problem who know how to think in terms of problem solving, proposing specific solutions, not only as, for example, for products of social sciences, not only to do diagnostic of a problem and to repeat the problem, that there is a problem, but to offer some instruments. And especially now, I think that we are in the period where there is a huge room for social innovation. as a combination of new technological paradigm, like, for example, let's pilot a blockchain registry of some public data or things like that. That can be done also in Serbia now, or in the region, but there should be a common language first in order to set this kind of project, and that everybody feels safe and happy about that. And it's a risk, it's also more responsibility for researchers, of course.
Okay, I'm going to talk again from the practitioner's point of view, unlike policy-making point of view. First of all, our institute provides itself a combination of research institute and high-tech companies. So we represent the bridge between academia and industry. But what we also do to provide this bridge towards the educational sector is that our senior researchers, including myself, also teach at University of Belgrade. For instance, I teach at School of Electrical Engineering of University of Belgrade, which is good because I provide practical examples to my students, but it's also good for my institute because I pick the best students from each class and bring them to my institute, unless they decide to go for PhD abroad. If they decide to go for PhD, I write the recommendation for them and ask them to come to work with us when they finish their PhD. And they do. I have 5 PhDs that came back from America, Spain, France, Italy, etc., etc. So we also provide internship, not only for students from School of Electrical Engineering, from the students from all over the world. Each summer we have at least 10 foreign students, undertaking their internship at our institute. That's also really, really important to provide this bridge. Also, what we can do from practice, we can actually provide precious inputs for innovating curricula in the educational sector, because we know what we as practitioners need. And these are the skills and knowledge that are not always provided even by the best schools, School of Electrical Engineering. In ICT, for instance, now you need to have data scientists, big data analytics, machine learning, semantic web, linked data web, and they don't teach it. At our computer science department, they teach operating system, programming languages, software engineering. So they need constantly and continuously innovate their curricula to actually follow cutting edge in respected area. And they don't do that. And they don't ask us for our input as how to improve and innovate their curricula. That's the bridge that academia doesn't use, but it should.
Thank you very much. Yes, please. Your view.
Nothing more to add. I had a wonderful talk to one of my professors. I studied here, and after, I graduated from this faculty about 5 years ago, even though I probably look younger. And after 5 years, I had a chance to talk to one of my professors, and that was the first time that somebody approached me and asked for feedback and what we actually need. So some kind of consulting, or whatever you want to call it, relationship between university and companies is something that we definitely need. We can provide trainings, we can provide internships. Just to put you in a picture, we actually have around 5 interns from Faculty of Electrical Engineering at the moment, and we do that pretty much year-round. So that kind of relationship can be done between any faculty, because we need people. The biggest problem we are facing is having people with great grades and no actual experience, no informal education, no projects behind them, and sometimes it's just not supported by environment, but also by institutions. What else to add here? cutting edge technology. Everything is changing so quickly, and we need to be more agile in changing things. Like next year, like a year from now, things that were so important will not be. I had to learn MySQL. I studied Faculty of Economics. That has nothing to do with economics, but that's something I need on a daily basis, which provides me with data to create an environment, a healthy environment, and be metric driven. People from this university are not provided with such education and have no skills to do such things unless they develop it in some company. And it's not something that can only be developed in a company, but can easily be developed here, right now. So we just need to be more agile. We need some, I can call it fresh blood, because we young people are the ones who are changing the world. And this is the thing, like, I know you guys from my studies, and I'm sure you have much more innovative ideas than someone who is here for such a long time, not because they did not invent, but because of the fact that you have more energy to lead a change. And that's something that we need here. We need to communicate more often, to be less vain, because some people say like hard work plus passion leads to workaholism. Workaholism plus vanity leads to insanity. And that's something we don't need at the moment. So we need to put our egos aside and just collect feedback and then create the environment that will develop people in a way that everybody will be hireable. Because right now, a lot of people are not from university, including myself. When I graduated, I was not really hireable because I did not return investment for 6 months, even though I was considered a good student. So having a close eye on the market and just listening to people who are a part of the market, including everyone, and just developing programs that are useful will change the faculty and the market itself. And people who are staying here and who are providing value will make this country more valuable country, and they will definitely stay here. So starting from there, because if Sanya mentioned people going abroad for PhD, why do we need to have someone abroad? I'm not saying that it's not good, because I traveled myself and it helped me a lot, but why don't we have such a great program here? What stops us? Well, it's just we're too slow, and we must be faster and change things rapidly.
Thank you, Mr. Delic.
I will just add to what my colleagues in this panel mentioned, that here the innovation infrastructures and the innovation intermediaries, I feel, can play a big role for bringing the business and the educational and research world. I'll just mention one finding from the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor for 2016, that one of the best rated aspects of governmental programs in Bulgaria are related to entrepreneurship is the support which is provided by business incubators, science and techno parks, and this is due to the strong involvement of the private sector and successful entrepreneurs who participate as mentors. So programs where not only the universities but also successful people from business, entrepreneurs, etc. can join forces and develop the skills which the market and society need.
Thank you very much. My last and third question would be, there are several projects in research and innovation funded by European Commission, by regional funds, even by bilateral projects from between two ministries. So what would you think, what would be, how to reach the most possible impact in these projects in the Danube region? What needs to be done? It's this, as it was mentioned, better collaboration between different stakeholders or something else? So maybe short.
Well, I'm not sure that there is something to add to the previous conclusions. I think that the setting of the topic and articulating of the relevant topic is something where more collaboration and more emphasis should be put. And how to come to the relevant topic, there should be more articulation of priorities from various sides in order to tackle the right issues and not to have just paper production that will not result in any benefit for the society. So I would conclude with relevance, to put more emphasis on relevance.
Thank you. Maybe. Sonia.
Well, as Zoya said, I think it's really important to include as many stakeholders as possible, but not only in these conferences and big events, but during the course of the project. So first of all, I, as an ICT person, would recommend to establish an ICT e-collaboration platform that actually could provide two-way communication between project partners, policymakers, all interested stakeholders, so they can stay in touch all the time. They can provide the feedback, they can review the results of the project, and then use it if they like it, or criticize it if they don't like it. So obviously, project partners will do their best to improve them if they are strongly criticized. So I think better interaction should be somehow implemented between the project partners and the stakeholders, and the wide expert area, even Delphi service, 2 steps, 3 steps, as many steps as possible to actually come to the consensus regarding some problem. And when the consensus is established and corresponding documents and policy recommendations produced, then all the interested parties should be aware of those consensus documents, and those that should use it should actually use it. That's my recommendation. Better collaboration, better networking, but first of all, better use of those results that are actually usable.
Thank you. That you mentioned before also local needs priorities in some of your...
I agree with everything you've just said. Knowledge sharing platform would be something that doesn't have any boundaries, no barriers to entry. If you are far from somebody, like hundreds of kilometers, you don't really need to meet with them, but having something online is definitely a good way to just move things forward. And never forgetting about giving back to the society, because you need to remember where you're coming from. And when I say this, I don't mean like, okay, you're from Serbia and you need to come back here and then provide some value to your citizens, but people who supported you, you should never forget them. For example, Started Community is a community here in Serbia who helped us a lot, finding the best talent, supporting us throughout the years. And now we're sharing best practices with them, with the new startup potentials. And that's something that we are proud of. Giving back to people who supported you, but also who did not, is something that we should never forget. So it's not always about building an infrastructure if it's not going to be used, but about raising awareness of how important it is to share knowledge and findings, either publications or anything that can help the whole society to progress and prosper. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Damjanova.
Okay, for me, having social value creating social value in all these projects, whether they will be under Interreg or under Horizon or under national programs, should be also on our agenda of each project, objectives, mission. And also for me, again, the coordination, the policy coordination is very important, because if I just take up, for example, the ReSTI project, in our case in Bulgaria, the co-funding comes from the Ministry of Regional Development, but the project itself is focused on research and innovation. Given that it's focused not only on technological but also on social innovation, I identified 3 more ministries of relevance in Bulgaria to the whole project. And then this policy coordination between the national level institutions and the Danube, Interreg Danube Secretariat, I think this will be essential for the future if we want really to achieve impact with all Interreg, whether they will be Interreg Danube, Balkan Med, whatever program we select. Okay, this was my final contribution.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much also to all panelists for your views and recommendations. Hereby I would then conclude. We have no networking and lunch, or what is on the agenda? Lunch, yeah. No, it's working lunch and networking, yes. So, yeah.
I would like to ask anyone if there are questions.
Yeah, questions, yeah.
Because I have a question.
Yes, please, please. Please, yes. No. So.
Thank you. I like this first hot part of the panel, and I would like to go back to this hot part. Coming from Mihailo Pupin Institute, Diana and I, we are from Science and Technology Policy Development Center. Our research task is to research how this development path is going on, for example, in Serbia. Some years ago, we tried to calculate correlation between research society and economy in Serbia. But first of all, we calculate this for US, and we find very high figure, almost 0.6, even bigger. Then we calculate for Serbia, and we found minus 0.3. And I suppose that sitting in Faculty of Economics, everybody understands what is the meaning of minus 0.3. It means that we live in 2 different planets, not a world, planets. Research society is thinking about writing articles, and the economy is trying to survive in the real world. There are not that many examples like Mihailo Pupin Institute, which tries to develop and use technologies. Thinking about this idea, how to transfer and diffuse technologies, making database of developments achieved in some research institutions. If you look at history of technological development for most of the countries in the world, you will see that this is the least efficient way of transferring, just making this database and waiting somebody who will come and collect some technologies. In my world, because I like this kind of wording, this is a stupid way of transferring diffusion technologies. If you are not part of economy, then you are doing something for nothing. There is no use of this kind of development. We have to be part of economy and society, which means actually that the role of government institution is not to fund basic research for developing countries. If you look South Korea or Austria or Finland or any other country, China, first what governments did is support of technological development. Later on, with a much richer economy, they were able to fund basic sciences. And that's something what we really have to read again, this technological development path of successful countries, and say that even in physics, we have to have something which is really part of economy. In mathematics, we have to have part of the economy. And if you look development of any software systems, you will see that the role of mathematics is now extremely important. But we have to have our mathematicians which are part of this kind of development. We cannot invest only for writing articles, improving our position in Web of Science journals with citations or whatever. We have to have our technologies, which means that the role of all these programs, we are part on, they have to be part of this development story. Therefore, our role here is to promote this kind of activities, at least in these rather undeveloped countries like Serbia.
It was also any comment on
I can comment from my experience because I teach at the Faculty of Mathematics, and we have applied mathematicians, but the stream applied mathematics, but we have recognized mathematic theoreticians who you should not leave go away and cut financing in order to have applied. I mean, I wouldn't agree with that, and I would like to see your correlation analysis, but correlation does not mean causality. Okay, I mean, just
Thank you. Anybody else would like? Any other questions? Eva, yes, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eva Vuksanovic Herceg. I'm one of the organizers, and I would have rather a remark, not a question, but I would like to say something referring to both Dino's and Sanya's comments regarding lack of agility and lack of innovative curricula related to market-based curricula. And I would like to say that, as Professor Kutlacha said this morning as a keynote, we do have something at University of Economics currently in a pipeline. We do have 3 new curricula, one related to ICT and business, the other one related to professional business services, and the third, the last but not least one, the state-of-the-art finance curricula, which is collaboratively done with LSE from London. So what I wanted to say is that when we first tried to introduce it, we faced huge resistance inside the institution, which is normal. Everybody faces resistance when we want to make radical changes, and we expected it. But what I wanted to tell you today, when I heard Sanya and Dino and Jasna, I realized that maybe we are not connected enough, because Professor Kutlacha told me that Pupin has a project that is directly related to innovative curricula, and we didn't know it. So maybe we are not discussing enough among each other as institutions, higher education institutions, research, innovation, and public authorities, because maybe together we could make better changes and faster changes, because we need fast changes, as Dino said, because tomorrow what we're doing today is not going to be relevant. So my comment today is that we really need to communicate and connect better. And I don't know what is the case in other Danube region countries, but in Serbia, definitely this is the case. And thank you very much for the wonderful discussion.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Yes, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Amos.
Yes, please.
I'm a student at the University of Belgrade, at the Faculty of Economics. I just wanted to add, according to the public sector, the Secretariat of Public Sector, I think, public policies, what I've seen, we are discussing something which is huge, but we forget that technology today is the base of international sphere. Because you cannot just say, like, you start up, like, inventing something, you don't have the base of international aspect. Why? Today, if you make incentives, maybe in technology like making chips, phone chips. These phone chips, you're going to compete with other countries which are huge in the market. They have the access of the continent market. So I would just want to say, like, comment on one of the institute here in Serbia called Institute of Zakukuruz, if people know about it.
Yeah, yeah.
In 1961, this institute was named as Institute Zakukuruz. What it did is to find the target market, and the target market was in Africa. They came to Africa. Me, in 1999 there, I was 9 years old. I remember we were using kukuruz from Zemun. So, the corn from Zemun. I want to say kukuruz so that everybody can know about the institute. So the comment is on the Institute of Mihailo Pupin, General Director. I am impressed with your comments, and I think it's very important that the government should regulate, make regulations which can help these institutes to look the target market. Because now, Serbia, you're saying about technology. You can't compete with Finland. You can't compete that easily. You can, but not that easily. With Sweden, come to Africa. Come to
yeah. May I comment? We are already present in Congo, Nigeria, Algeria, Uganda, 7 African countries. I can't name them now, but we are really present there. For instance, last year we concluded in Algeria 2 huge contracts, more than 4 million euro, all of them. You wouldn't believe we also control power distribution network in Algeria. We also water and sewage network in Algeria. We are connecting digital meteorological stations in Nigeria. So we do have penetration to our African continent. Of course, we can do more. You can help us maybe, but we are considering seriously African continent. Things are, going slowly but surely there. It takes, 2+ years to conclude the contract, but finally it actually pays off. So please work for us and be our marketing manager for your country, and you're going to have your finder's fee.
That sounds good. That sounds good. That's why I was trying to say, like, because we have to look at the target market. We cannot just talk about technology. We don't have the target market. I agree with Dino. Yeah, we have to have that commercial market. We have to sell. We might be inventing all the time, but we don't have the target market. You can't go to sell in Finland. Finland are already packed with technology. So that was my comment. So the government should work hand in hand with these institutes to find the target market, where the market is. Thank you.
Did he get a job?
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? No. Then I would propose to conclude now. Thank you again for your questions, for all the panelists, for a lively discussion. We will start again after the lunch at 2:15. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen. Now, after this very fruitful panel discussion, I invite you to have lunch on the 7th floor in our restaurant, and as you have heard, 2:15 we shall continue with the event. Thank you.